There are still some people, even now in 2025, who think that electric cars are fine as a little city run around and for short journeys, but you can't possibly do long journeys with them. They can't handle motorway speeds and you'll always be running out of range or searching for a charger. But I'm happy to say that's not the case at all. We're here in Paris. We've driven all the way here from Liverpool. Absolutely no problem at all.
So it's the evening before we head off to Paris, and I'm going to set the car to charge up fully before we leave. As you can see, it only takes a couple of seconds to plug the car in, far quicker than a trip to a petrol station, and then the car will charge overnight while we sleep. My car, a Tesla Model Y, and my home electricity supplier, Octopus, talk to each other via their respective apps on my phone. It's really quick and easy. In the Octopus app, you tell it what charge level you need and by what time, then it automatically decides when to charge your car to take advantage of the best, cheapest and most environmentally friendly times, as well as balancing demand on the electricity network in your local area, all whilst ensuring your car is ready to go by the time you need it. Charging at home is really cheap, only 7p per kilowatt hour or unit of electricity if you're with Octopus on the intelligent Octopus Go tariff. The entire house, not just your car, gets cheap electricity at 7p a unit every single night from 11:30pm until 5:30am, even if your car's not plugged in. Plus, if Octopus choose to charge your car outside these hours, then the whole house gets bonus cheap electricity too, saving even more money. On this occasion, Octopus chose to charge the car for half an hour before the standard cheap rate starts, and again between 9am and 11am the following morning, so the whole house gets those bonus cheap slots too. That's great if you need to put on an extra load of washing or do some hoovering. My car's battery is 75 kilowatt hours, so fully charging the car the night before, whilst I slept so it didn't take any time or keep me waiting, costs 75 times 7p, so £5.25, and a range of about 300 or so miles. What I'm going to do as well for a bit of fun is set the trip meter for our holiday to France. So if I go trip A, I'm going to give that a name. I'll call that Drive to Paris and save that. That'll allow us to keep track of our average efficiency on our whole trip. There we are. So our drive to Paris is currently on 0. So we'll see how we go on there. First things first, for driving to the mainland, pop the UK magnet on the back of the car, proudly displaying the EU stars that we never should have given up, and then we packed up the car ready for the holiday. Another advantage of electric cars is that with there being no petrol tank or engine, there's usually much more luggage space. On top of an already huge boot, we have this large sub-boot as well, and this front boot, frunk or fruit, which altogether can hold so much that although I have a roof box, I've never needed to use it since we went electric. So there was plenty of space for our twin boys' birthday presents as well as our suitcases for a week away. The first leg of our journey was from Liverpool to St Albans, where we'd have an overnight stop before continuing to Dover to get the ferry. So I put that into the car's sat-nav, and it automatically adds in any charging stops you might need along the way. But as you can see, the car can comfortably drive all the way to St Albans, no problem at all, and still have 29% charge left over. But I certainly can't drive for nearly 3.5 hours without needing a wee and a leg stretch though, and as we were leaving straight after picking the kids up from school, we'd be stopping for tea anyway, so not that we need to, but we might as well plug the car in as it'll be sat there doing nothing whilst we eat tea and stretch our legs. We planned to stop about halfway at the rugby services, which are excellent, and they have a big play area for the kids to let off steam, so I tapped the little icon for charging stations on the screen and it'll show all the Tesla Superchargers. There are thousands of non-Tesla chargers as well that we could use. And then if I zoom into rugby, it'll tell me the cost, how busy it is, and even how many free stalls there are right now. Tap the little plus icon to add that as a stop on the journey, and you're good to go. So with that, it was time to set off on our journey, and I'd been out in the car and done some errands while the kids were at school that day, so we actually left with 98%, so let's adjust that £5.25 to £5.15. 1, 2, 3, come on! My wife drove the first leg with the kids happy in the back. Electric cars are generally more spacious inside because with the much simpler drivetrain and no engine or gearbox, they can be designed with a longer wheelbase, resulting in a roomier cabin. Plus, no transmission tunnel means whoever's sat in the middle seat gets a much more comfortable ride with space for their legs and feet. So we settled into the drive, down the M6, and were even treated to a bit of the great British weather that we'd soon be waving goodbye to. You can see how the sat-nav tells you how much charge you'll have when you arrive at your destination or on the next stop in your journey. And it's often quite pessimistic at the start. I usually find the number goes up as you drive there, and you almost always arrive with more battery than it initially estimates you will. Even with my wife's lead foot on the motorway.
Oi!
Another feature I really like in the Tesla, which arrived via a free software update about a year ago, is that when you're in an average speed zone, it calculates your average speed for you and also tells you how many miles until you'll be free of it. So if you accidentally go slightly over, you'll know when you're back in the good books. As we approach the Rugby motorway services, because we've added a charging stop into the sat-nav, it starts preconditioning the battery, ready for that charge. That means it warms the battery up to the ideal temperature, so when you plug in you get the fastest possible charge. Thermal management also ensures that it looks after the battery's long-term health. That's one of the reasons that batteries last so much longer and are more reliable than complicated and old-fashioned petrol engines that wear out and lose power over time with all that heat and friction.
We are here.
Tea time.
We pulled into the services and headed for the Tesla Superchargers with 52% still in the battery. So we definitely didn't need to charge, but we were going to be stopped for a while, so why not? Charging couldn't be simpler. At the Tesla chargers, all you do is plug in and walk away. The charger talks to your car and it's billed to your credit card saved within your Tesla account. No contactless card payment, RFID card or app needed. If you don't have a Tesla though, you can still charge at most Tesla charging stations by using the Tesla app, and I'll be showing you how easy it is to use non-Tesla chargers at the next charging stop in this video. The price at this charger at this time of day was 43p per unit. Yes, that's obviously much more than 7p at home, but I only ever use these on really long trips. I do 68% of my charging at home, according to the Tesla app, and as you'll see later in this video, even with the far higher unit price at public charging stations, the overall cost of the journey is still amazingly cheap. So we headed into the services, leaving the car sipping on its electric juice whilst we went to the toilet, had our dinner, and the kids had a run around in the soft play.
Happy holiday.
You can keep an eye on how the car's doing, if you want, with the mobile phone app. We got back to the car and unplugged 43 minutes later, and it had got all the way back up to 97% at a cost of only £14.81. If it's a Tesla charger you're at, it'll even tell you the cost of that charge on the screen in the car, and at non-Tesla chargers it'll generally tell you either on the charger, much like a petrol pump would, or if you use the Electroverse app it'll show you there. Running total, £5.15 plus £14.81 equals £19.96 so far. Onwards now to our overnight stop in St Albans, where it said we'd arrived with 75% in the battery. The roads were really nice and clear and we made good progress. It's a really relaxing car to drive with no gears to think about, and the traffic-aware cruise control and auto steer mean you're much less fatigued. We arrived at our overnight stop and this time the car's prediction was spot on. Exactly 75% in the tank when we arrived. There were actually chargers at the bottom of the street, but there was no need to plug in overnight, so we just parked in the hotel car park as normal. Quick check-in on the stats so far, and we've done about 192 miles, averaging 249 watt-hours of electricity used per mile driven. Doing the maths, anything under 250 gives a car with a 75 kilowatt-hour battery a range of over 300 miles. Yes, even at motorway speeds. And with that, we tucked in for a night's restful sleep. Next morning, the car was on 72%, only dropping 3% overnight due to its Sentry mode, which keeps it awake with one eye open and records from the various cameras around the car in case anyone tries to break in or drive into it or open a car door into it. That came in very handy one time when someone carelessly opened their car door into mine, whacking it so hard that it dented the door and chipped right down to bare metal. They scarpered without leaving a note, but due to the fantastic high-quality footage, I was able to track them down and get in contact. He initially denied it, until I sent him the footage, and then his next message was, "I'll call my insurance company." So, using 3% of the battery to keep that security system on all night is well worth it if you ask me, and doesn't worry me at all. We had plenty of time before the ferry, so we decided, as it was our twin boys' birthday that morning, that we'd treat them with a McDonald's breakfast, so I found one that was about halfway between St Albans and Dover, and it said we'd arrive there with about 58% in the battery. We were treated to some more lovely, dull, drizzly British weather as we carried on south, across the Dartford crossing and then pulled into the McDonald's car park, where there were 2 Instavolt chargers. These work a bit differently from Tesla charging stations in that they don't talk to the car to know who you are and who to bill for the charge. But thankfully, despite what you might have read in the Telegraph or Daily Mail, it's not the case at all that you have to have a million other apps on your phone and cards in your wallet. On the whole, they take contactless payments, and almost every single other public charging network in Europe is also part of the Octopus Electroverse, which is a brilliant system that amalgamates the various charging networks and lets you access them all using just one app on your phone or card in your wallet. I keep mine in the glove box. It's dead easy, just tap your Electroverse card on the payment terminal and then plug in. I guess it's the equivalent of merging Shell, Esso, BP, Texaco and other petrol stations into one. And what's more, if you're an Octopus Energy customer, then it just bills the charging session to your home electricity account. So if you're in credit at home, it'll just use that credit to pay for your car charge. And if you're with Intelligent Octopus Go like I am, you also get an 8% discount on the price too. Win-win. This video isn't sponsored, but if you want to join either Octopus or Electroverse, then there are referral links for both in the video description that get you some free credit. I set the limit back to 80% for this charge, partly because although it's a great network, Instavolt are more expensive than Tesla Superchargers, and because I knew that 80% would be more than enough to get us to Dover, across in the ferry and well into France, where we could use another Tesla charger when we stopped for tea that evening. Even though this charge was more expensive, just wait till you see how cheap the final cost is compared to flying. Even I was shocked. 20 minutes it said that would take. Now try getting 3 kids to go to the toilet, choose their breakfast, wait for it to arrive and eat it in under 20 minutes. Another thing I love about Teslas and their cameras is that you can view them live in the app, so if you're the paranoid sort, or just a tech-loving geek like me, you can watch what's going on around your car. It finished charging before our breakfast had even arrived, so I nipped outside to unplug and move it to make room for if anyone else wanted to use the charger. And that's actually a very common occurrence with charging electric cars in my experience. It's always finished charging before we're ready to go again. We certainly don't feel like we have to wait for it to charge or feel like our journey's progress is ever slowed down at all. With the discount via Octopus Electroverse, that top-up came to £15.46, bringing our running total to £35.42 so far. After breakfast, I popped Dover Ferryport into the sat-nav and on we went with a projected 62% battery status and a toasty warm 15 degrees C on arrival. It's years since I'd been to Dover and it's quite exciting, isn't it? As the road turns round to the left and you go downhill, suddenly you see the sea, the port and the white cliffs and you know that you'll be heading off on an adventure soon. And hopefully you don't bump into any angry men called Nigel. We headed through customs and passport control to the check-in lanes to wait for boarding, and one of the brilliant things about Teslas is having a large touchscreen display as their dashboard means that when parked, it can double up as a TV. So during long waits with children, you can pass the time a bit more easily with Netflix, Disney Plus or YouTube, all powered by the car's huge battery and its internet connection. Or they can read a book, of course, you know, screen time in moderation and all that. Onto the ferry we went with 58% in the battery, and then we headed out onto deck to wave goodbye to the British Isles. Arriving in Calais, we drove off the ferry with 57% in the battery, and the car is clever enough to realise that we're now in a country which drives on the other side of the road, so it adjusts the headlights automatically. No need for those awful stickers. With our campsite destination in the sat-nav, the car automatically suggests a charging stop if it needs it, and how many minutes it'll take to top up. That's right, mere minutes, not hours, and in a car with 3 hungry children, pausing for tea and a leg stretch at about 6 PM, sounds good to me. With the units on the car screen switched to kilometers per hour, the car ate up those motorway miles no problem at all, and the combination of speed-aware cruise control and auto steer on this Tesla Model Y makes it a much more relaxing and enjoyable experience than last time I drove through Europe in a horrible diesel. You've got to love French motorways. Usually only 2 lanes, and yet they always feel so much quieter and more relaxing than UK motorways, and the scenery in northern France isn't too bad either. We changed our minds as to when we'd stop for tea and decided to go a bit further first, which wasn't a problem as the car still had plenty of juice in the tank and there were also plenty of charge points out there. Infrastructure isn't a problem, despite what some social media comment sections frequented by people with no actual experience of electric cars might have you think.
Je parle des fois tu ne m'entends pas, comme un écho qui s'évapore dans l'univers.
So we headed on to our stop, and again the car started to automatically precondition the battery for fast charging as we got closer. We pulled into this Tesla Supercharger on 9%, and it was located in the car park of a huge retail and leisure site. And we plugged in again. Again, that's all you need to do. No apps, credit card or special Tesla card needed, just park up, plug in and walk away. This ended up being an ideal place to stop, as after the toilet there was a play area for the kids to burn off some of that pent-up energy from sitting in the car for so long, and then we ordered some food for the twins' birthday tea, whilst the car sat there munching down on its own evening meal. At this stop I didn't need to charge to anything like 100% in order to get us to our campsite, but I left the charge limit at 100 because we were in no rush, and it would be handy to arrive at the campsite with plenty of juice in the battery for day trips and driving around during the holiday. I kept an eye on the charging whilst we were eating our dinner, and it also shows you the running cost of that charge too, and it's also much cheaper over in France than it is in the UK. Even allowing the car to charge all the way to 100%, once again it was fully charged before we were ready to leave, so we weren't hanging around waiting for the car to charge. Charging from 9% up to 100% cost just €25.51, billed to my UK credit card as £21.50. But of course we won't be using all that to complete our journey today, so I'll do some maths for you after the final leg. We then had just an hour's more driving to get to our campsite, with the car predicting we'd arrive there with 85% left for the week.
Je meurs, tu ne vois pas. Je meurs, tu ne vois pas. On meurt. Je te glisse entre les doigts. Je te glisse entre les doigts. Je te glisse entre les doigts.
We did our final weave through the gorgeous French countryside on this lovely May evening, and then arrived at the campsite with 86% in the battery, so a smidgen better than the car had predicted. So we used just 14% of the battery for that final leg, so we'll do £21.50 divided by 91, because we charged from 9 to 100%, and then multiply that by 14 to get a cost of £3.30 for that last journey leg, giving a grand total of £38.72. So final costs, £5.15 plus £14.81 plus £15.46 plus £3.30 equals £38.72 in total to drive from Liverpool to Paris with 5 people plus luggage in the car. That's just £7.74 each. If I look up flights to do the same trip next year, booking nearly a year in advance with EasyJet for 2 adults, 3 children and a suitcase each, that comes to £592.35, or £118.47 per person versus £7.74. Adding on the one-way ferry, which was £108, and the overnight stop, which was £157.50, our total one-way journey was £304.22. So flying, £600 give or take, and not including taxi or bus to and from the airports. But driving an EV, £300 give or take, door to door, half the cost of flying. And a fair estimate of how much this journey would cost with a 1.6 diesel would be in the region of £85 to £100. So this shows electric cars to be around 2.5 times cheaper for long journeys than diesel, and no slower, even when relying on public charging. I briefly flipped the units back to miles to see that the car's efficiency for the drive all the way from Liverpool to Paris was 257 watt-hours per mile, giving a real-world total range of my Tesla Model Y of 292 miles for anyone who's interested in that. I'm not really though, because I can't think of anything worse than charging to 100% and driving 300 odd miles in one go without stopping. 292 miles at a constant 70 miles per hour would be 4 hours and 10 minutes of driving. You wouldn't drive at a constant speed of 70 miles per hour, of course, so in the real world you're talking 5 or 6 hours of driving without stopping, which would just be stupid. My bladder can't manage more than a couple of hours without a quick wee stop, and as charging can take as little as 5 minutes, that's all you need. So as long as your car's range is greater than that of your bladder, you're all good.
So as you can see, it was no problem at all driving from Liverpool to Paris in an electric car, and it was much cheaper than it would have been if we'd been in a petrol or a diesel car. And also the public charging here in France is much cheaper than in the UK because the general price of electricity is lower. And it was absolutely no problem at any of the charging stations. It was quick and easy, it was fast, and we spent precisely 0 minutes waiting for the car to charge. At no point were we sat in it waiting. It didn't slow us down at all. Every single time we charged when we'd stopped anyway. We didn't stop specifically to charge, and every single time the car was ready before we were ready and finished with our stops. And that was the case at both the Tesla and the non-Tesla charging stations. If you've got any questions about switching to an electric car or living with an electric car, then please do leave them in the comment section below. And if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to see more like this.